Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Malcontent Corner, the corner where I hope to enlighten your lives by sharing with you things I've learned in the daily walk of mine. Today is going to be episode number 2 of the leaky GMC. So let me take you outside and show you what I am working on. Okay everybody, so here's what we have going on today, and this is what I'm going to be working on. This is on the passenger side of the truck here. Now normally there's a plastic filler piece that goes in here, which I've removed, but what there is there is a metal plate right here. This is with the hood closed. I'm filming this so we can get a better angle from this shot. But anyways, I have ascertained that this plate is leaking. There are plenty of videos out there on YouTube explaining it, so it's nothing new, but basically what I did was I took a piece of plastic, actually it was a vegetable bag, I duct taped it up here, I duct taped it down under here, and it provided a runoff for any rain. So as long as that plastic bag was in place, I didn't have any water leaking into the cab on the passenger side floorboard. So unbeknownst to me, the bag shifted. I was showing a friend what I was doing, and the bag actually shifted over this way a little bit, and I looked this past week when we had a ton of rain, and sure enough there was water on that piddle pad inside the passenger compartment. So I know for some reason, I think I see a crack over here. It's really hard to see with this camera, but what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to work the seam all around here with a little belt sanding file that I have. It's a 1/2-inch belt file sander. I purchased this years ago for auto rebuild project before I was even filming YouTubes, and I rebuilt my wife's 2001 Mercury Cougar with it. This was real handy as opposed to drilling spot welds. This is real handy to get in there and just grind down the metal to where the spot weld lets loose. So that's what I purchased this for, but that will also be very good for working along the seam here. I don't plan on removing this plate. I'm just going to work the filler, the seam sealer here, and just rough it up and clean it up, and then I'll hit it and let it dry, and we'll see how that goes. So I'll get started and kind of film where I'm at. All right everybody, so I'm going to film from a different angle now. This is after just about 5 or 10 minutes or so of sanding with that belt sander. You know, my goal is not to remove all of this, but to rough it up so that anything I put on there will stick. You know, obviously putting something new on top of a bad substrate isn't a great idea for paint or a great many things. So I just went through and cleaned this up. Now I don't know if this is going to transfer. Oh, there you go. I noticed that this front half has a lot of this checking and cracking in it. So I'm suspecting that may be where some of the problem lies. But I went through and just kind of cleaned it up real quick, and I'm going to hit it just a few more times just to smooth out some of it. Again, my goal is not to remove all of this filler, but to at least get it back enough to where anything new I put on there will adhere to both the steel and what is currently there. So anyways, that's I'm thinking this is probably where my problem lies here. Not so much in the back. The back doesn't have a whole lot of cracking. I mean, it doesn't transfer very well. Most of what you see here is from the sander itself. But once I hit this, I noticed all that. So anyways, yeah, that's what I have. So anyways, I will come back in a bit after I finish cleaning this up just a little bit more and reseal it. And I'll show you what I used and how it looks. Back in a bit. Okay everyone, so here we have it. This is the final job. After my last video clip, I went through, just sanded a little bit more, got a rag with some rubbing alcohol, wiped the whole area down, cleaned it up, let it air out and dry, and then I went through with a glove and smeared seam sealer in a nice thick band all around the upper edge here and this lower plate all the way around. Now in case you're curious, I use this 3M auto body sealer, part number 08302, It is clear, which is why you still see some bare metal on here. It is covered with seam sealer, but it's clear. I believe 08301 is the same sealant, but in tan. I elected to just get 302 because it was readily available, where 301 would have been a special order. So anyways, what I'm going to do now is let it sit here. It needs to off gas for 24 to 48 hours. With the sun beating on it, I suspect it'll dry out pretty quick. But you're not supposed to paint it for at least 24 to 48 hours. I'm going to let it just sit for the next day or two. Then what I'll do is I will flush it with water, and then if that passes the test, I'll let it dry out, and then I'll just spray paint it with some gloss black Krylon. Again, there's a filler piece in here, so I'm not too worried about it, but I certainly, any steel that might not be covered, I certainly am going to want to make sure that it is covered so that it doesn't rust or anything like that. But right now, it's going to be in a little bit of a waiting pattern, so I will finish this video up in the garage after I have some more information to share with you. So, see you all in a bit. All right, everybody, take two. If you notice, the plate's gone. That's because after I filmed the first stock of video, I wanted everything to dry for about 24 to 48 hours, and it started raining after about 2 days. So I was like, perfect test. And much to my chagrin, my piddle pad inside the passenger side front seat area was wet again. Not as bad as before, so an improvement, but still getting wet. At this point, I'm feeling kind of defeated, to be honest with you guys. Water leaks can be the worst because water can migrate anywhere. But what I ended up doing was, once it stopped raining, I ended up taking a hose and just running it from the top all the way down over the metal plate here. And I let it run for about a good 10-15 minutes, and there was not a drop of water inside the cab. However, when I took this hose and jammed it in through this vent, cowl vent hole right here, within about 5 minutes, I had water on the inside of my cab. Now, in looking at it, it looked like, I don't know how well this is going to show up here. Let me try to see if I can get this. If you look down there, you're going to see that white door. That's, I believe, a blend door to let in cold air. Because this right here is the ducting that routes the air down into the cab. There was water leaking in there. So at that point, I knew, okay, whatever the problem is, it was underneath the metal plate here. So what I ended up doing was taking a screwdriver, going along the edge, digging out my new seam sealer, digging out some of the old seam sealer. And I'm not saying you should do this, but this is what I did. I took a torch and just heated it up along this section here, and pried it up a little bit, and just heated it as I pried it up on both sides. So you don't want to put a lot of stress on it and just bend one side up. So I was kind of working it back and forth, and I got the plate out. The second I got it out, I noticed that right here, it's so hard to film like this. Right here was a dam made out of pine needles, a big old ball of pine needles. Now, was the water hitting that, rising up over the edge of this plenum, or this ducting here, and dripping in there? I don't know. I do know that I took out the pine needles and I jammed the hose under here and ran the water, and it was a good 15 minutes and not a drip came in. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm probably in pretty good shape. However, and I want to show this out to you, if you look there, it's a really bad RTV job. What I found was there's a seam on the inside of this plastic ducting here, and I didn't want to pull it apart or anything, but in running the water, I was feeling along that seam, and it felt like my finger was coming off damp. So I don't know if there's a foam on there or what, but I did not want to take any chances. So basically I took black RTV and just smeared it all along the seam. It's not the prettiest job, but it doesn't have to be, because once the plate's on, nobody's going to see it. But this plastic piece goes as far as under here somewhere. So you have to kind of reach in there and kind of pack the RTV in when you get to this section here. I do recommend using a glove of some sort to do that, because it is a messy job. But once I did that, and again, I didn't have to do that, I just elected to do that. I just ran the water again, and it is still dry. So at that point, I think I've got to the bottom of the leak, at least on this side of the truck. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the plate back on, seam seal it in place, let it dry, and then I'll run water on the top of it, and just make sure it's good. Of course, obviously, I'll probably put the hose back in here and run it just to make sure. I had water running on both sides, so I've got 2 leaks in this truck. One's coming in from the back. There's a video I will post on that later, but for right now I'm focused on this one, and at least I feel as though I've got this one isolated and rectified. So stay tuned. I'll let you know what comes of it, but I've got to put the plate back on, and I want it to dry for at least a good 24 hours before I start running water on it. One of the things I might want to make note of is there is a screw right here that the cowl plastic piece that fills in here. There's a screw hole here, and that screw hole leads right into the opening of this ducting. So if that screw is leaking, or if it's missing, you might be getting water in there, because that too will drip down to that blend door down at the bottom of this ducting here. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'll put the metal plate back on here, seam seal it. I'm going to let it dry up, and I'll report back as to what came of it. So stay tuned.
A few moments later.
Hi everyone, welcome back. So I'm happy to say at this point that the leak in the passenger side front of the truck is taken care of and has been banished from at least this vehicle. Now, I had a few questions like, okay, why did it leak after I sealed it, but it didn't leak when I had the plastic bag on it? The only thing I can speculate on that is that when I had the plastic bag on there, it did not rain super hard. So it might have given the water enough time to work its way through that ball of pine needles that was in there near that plenum. And that way it never really overfilled into the plenum. And then at that point I was just seeing the leak of the plate and the body or the seam sealer itself. But once I took the plastic off, if it rained, that piddle pad that I had in there would be pretty well soaked. So what I think I had going on here was that after I seam sealed it the first time, and I didn't realize it was going to rain, but we ended up having a couple days there of some pretty substantial rain. And I think that the water, there was so much of it cascading into that cowl vent area that it was literally backing up on the pine needles and spilling into the ducting there that led down into the cab. That's the only thing I can speculate on. I'm happy to say that once I did seam seal it, the leak was substantially minimized in comparison to what it was before. So I was probably dealing with 2 issues there that were kind of masquerading as one. One being the seam sealer itself was probably leaking, and 2 probably being the fact that I had this ball of pine needles in there, or debris I should just call it, that was probably creating a dam, letting the water build up during a heavy rain, or especially if you're driving at speeds, and it would drip in. So once I pulled out the pine needles there, I ran the water, as I said, everything was fine. I went through along that joint where on the inside of the plenum there with RTV and sealed that up. And I put the plate back on and sealed that up, and once again I ran water on it for a good 30 minutes, and I'm happy to say there was not one drip. So yay, that problem's taken care of. I was thinking that this video might be several videos long because obviously I had that leak to contend with. I have a leak in the rear driver's side to contend with. But I did shoot video stock for the seam seal along the top of the truck. There's actually a little filler piece there where the two panels join together. I filmed myself showing you what it was. I filmed myself filling it in with a different kind of seam sealer. I didn't use this stuff. I used a slightly different one. And I still had a water leak. I ended up building little dams in the that little trough area on the driver's side out of duct tape so I could see if the water was coming in from the front or the back. It was coming in from the back. I seam sealed it and it rained and I still had water there. So once again I was like, God, blah. So at this point I was really scratching my head, and what I ended up doing was just running water on the back corner. So if you look at the truck, it comes and it curves, and you got the back window there. And I ran it there, and sure enough, I had a leak there. So I'm like, okay, I'm not thinking it's the seam anymore. I'm thinking it's this window. So then what I did was I moved the hose a little bit over the hood of the top there, and I held my hand so that the water pouring out of the hose was coming down and directed it at that window. And yeah, it was leaking pretty bad. Once I got back inside the truck, I pushed on that window, and I can push that window out from the frame probably a good 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. Not so much at the top, but definitely at the bottom. And I could see, you know, if I had water running down it and I pushed it, obviously I could see a ton of water coming in. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I had the one leak up in the front, and I have a leaky rear window. Unfortunately, because as you saw in the previous video, the truck is in disarray right now. All the seats are pulled out, and I actually have some of the interior pieces, like the back bench seat and the driver's seat, stored in the back of the truck because I have a canopy on it. So basically, I'm going to have to get the truck back together and then pull the canopy off and then take it in, and I will let some professionals reseal that window. But once I get that done, I suspect my leaks will be gone. I did get a new airbag module, and I'm happy to say that it works fine. So, you know, I no longer have the airbag light on anymore. So, yay! That's one thing about GM. They, especially with these trucks, is they made a bazillion of them. So there's a lot of parts out there. Kind of feel the same way about the second generation Explorer. They made a bazillion of them. So there's plenty of parts out there. Although there's a split in the model years between the first two and the last 3 or 4. But anyways, I digress. So what I thought was going to be a 3 or 4 part video series is actually just going to be a 2 with regards to the leak itself. I will shoot a video once I get the new carpet in there and get everything put back together, just to show you how it all looks. You know, I mean, carpet installation is pretty cut and dry. I may shoot some stock on that. I haven't, and I'm not sure about that because it can be kind of fiddly work, and I don't want to chew up a lot of time just filming boring stuff. So anyways, regarding the leak, it's only going to be the 2 videos here. So with that, I'm happy to say at least I am making progress on it. I do have a carpet on order. I will put it in, and then in the meantime, if it does happen to rain, I will just have to put a tarp over the top of the truck there to keep the water from dumping down that back window and coming in. Last thing I want to do is end up soaking my new carpet. So anyways, that's what I have for you in this episode. What I thought was going to be a lot worse actually ended up being pretty easy. I'm not through the woods yet, but at least I can see the other side of the forest at this point. So I'm feeling pretty confident I'll have this taken care of. And well, there you have it. If you happen to have one of these trucks, these old square body trucks, and you're having leaks in various places, if you have them in the front, you know kind of what to look for, at least with the passenger side. With regards to anything in the back, you might want to check that rear window. In my case, it's leaking. So anyways, that's what I have for you. As always, thank you for listening to me. I hope to see you back again here in the not too distant future. So until that time, please take care of yourselves, Take care of your loved ones, and we'll see you back here later on. All right? Ciao.